Hello and welcome to the Monday Agenda. The 10th of October every year, the world commemorates the Day Against Death Penalty, and I'm delighted that the Monday Agenda, Capital TV, IPP Media at large, we have an opportunity to talk about World's Day Against Death Penalty, and with me at the studio is Ms. Rose Mwalongo, who is the Executive Director of Tanzania Media for Community Development, and on the far left, Advocate Fulgence Masawe, Director of Advocacy and Reforms at the Legal and Human Rights Center. Very welcome to the Monday Agenda, and thank you so much for making time to come to talk of this very important topic.
Thank you. Thank you.
Maybe before we deep dive into the World Day Against Death Penalty, which I'm still asking myself in the back of my head, do we have death penalty in Tanzania? Maybe to understand, to start with you, Madam Rose, Tanzania Media for Community Development, what is it that you do? My viewers will be very keen to understand.
Okay. So the Tanzania Media for Community Development is a non-governmental organization, or rather a media institution, that was established this year by 10 people, 6 women and 4 men, with the main objectives being to build the capacity of community and mainstream media and to enable them to report development issues as per the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Okay. The other objective also is to engage in research. All the things that are done are related, of course, to development, to engage in research and advocacy of various laws in regard to development issues. Okay. So those are some of the critical areas that we engage in. We also engage into commemoration of international days, okay, such as the World Radio Day, the World Press Freedom Day, March 8, the International Day for the African Child, and the upcoming World Day Against the Death Penalty. Okay. Those are some of the issues, of course, with the 16 days of activism ahead of us. Those are some of the issues that we commemorate. All issues related to development, and the gender is at the top of our priority.
Gender?
Yeah, gender is one.
So this is also part of the UN's mission, which is leaving no one behind.
Yeah.
All right, wonderful. Advocate Fulgence. Yes, sir. Legal and Human Rights Center. You work on advocacy and reforms. Tell us slightly more about Legal and Human Rights Center and then your role, basically what you do.
Yeah, Legal and Human Rights Center, as the name suggests itself, it's legal and human rights organization. And this September on 26th, we celebrated our 27th anniversary. Wow. Since the organization was established in 1995. And the mission of establishment of this organization, basically, I can summarize in 2 things. First is to empower the community on the legal and human rights issues. And second is to advocate for reforms of the laws and policies and practice in our community. So as an organization, we have worked on the number of the issues, cross-cutting issues, because we are not working in the particular thematic area. We work all cross-cut of the human rights. So we advocate for reforms of the law and policies. So when we see the law is not sensitive, does not address the standard of the human rights internationally, or there is a shortcoming within that law. Whenever we do analysis, whenever we see it does not conform with that international standard, because Tanzania is a part of the global community and we have ratified a number of international instruments which protect and recognize various human rights instruments. So when we see something is in violation or is inconsistent with those instruments, we work on it. And death penalty be one of the area which we think that it violates the human rights, is the area which we think that we should do away. Because we believe, working on the human rights, life in sanctity. Without life, other rights cannot be in existence.
Of course.
So that's why we say when you are protecting human rights, life should be #1 priority. That's why we advocate a lot since inception, for inception of this organization, 1995. Death penalty has been one of the agenda in our daily work. To make
so sure you've commemorated in September 27
26, 27 years of
27 years of existence.
Yes.
Delighted to learn that, and congratulations. And for the past 27 years, Advocate Fulgence, you've been fighting to abolish death penalty in Tanzania.
Yeah, among other things.
Among other things, yes. So we're focusing on death penalty.
Yeah.
The pursuit, how do you say the journey has been in this particular regard for the past 27 years? Because it's quite a longer time. It's 1995, so we've had 3 terms presidents. And I understand that Legal and Human Rights Center is such a reputable organization. Why is it that the government, and through your desk actually, advocacy and advocacy in particular, why is it that for the past 27 years we've not been able to abolish? Probably today we could have been celebrating so many years since the abolishment of the death penalty in Tanzania.
Yeah, death penalty itself is very broad, and when we are talking about the abolition of death penalty, there are some other intermediate intervention in between. We are lucky in Tanzania. Of course, we have the law in place, and people are being condemned to death now and then. But since 1994-95, there is no any record of execution in Tanzania. So when we are advocating for abolition of death penalty, we look on the various issues. We have issues of the death row phenomena. We have mandatory death penalty. We have reducing number of the offenses which are punishable by death. We look at the trial procedure on all. So we look at the broader perspective. So there are some areas which I can say that we have advanced at least. Example of not having any execution since 1994 to date. To us, it's a plus. But also mass commutation. We have some of the people who have been convicted to death sentence, convicted for, especially for offense of murder and sentenced to death, but some of them, their sentence has been commuted. You remember the late President Magufuli is the person who will go in the history on the death penalty issues. He's the only president of Tanzania who came clearly in the public say he's against death penalty. When you were swearing Chief Justice and later on judges, he said one of the hardest tasks you have, you guys, is to sentence people to death. And you'll sentence one person. But to me, they'll come more for me to sign the warrants for them to be executed. And he declared, I'll never do that. So to us, that is a very strong statement to the public that even the president, the head of state, was not in favor of the death penalty. So to us, is a plus. But the subsequent action which were taken by president, it can demonstrate his position. He's the one of the president who did mass commutation of the death sentence to life imprisonment, and some people are released totally. So to me, if you say that you have to be successful, we can count those intermediate interventions and the successes to us as we have achieved something. Because towards abolition of death penalty, there are some of the issues to be addressed. Because they always say that death penalty is in favor of the public opinion. But if you conduct a study throughout the world, people, the country which have abolished death penalty, it has been always against the public opinion. Because there are a lot of hidden issues. Rosia was talking about gender and women generally. You look at the criminal justice system, you'll find the number of the people who are facing death penalty is the men. But to us, in our work of the abolition, we are saying that there are unseen tears, people who are suffering, the families, the wives of the people who have convicted today. You know, we say an eye for an eye, but even say an eye for an eye, one day the whole country will be blind. Yeah. Because if someone kills and you kill that person, it goes contrary to the principle of the criminal punishment. Because we want these people to be reformed. It cannot be reversed. Right. And we, in the country where the criminal prosecution is manifested with a lot of errors and the investigation is very poor, because most of the people who are convicted, it's always on their admission. But how is it procured? Those confessions that people confess to kill. And we see at the legal representation how effective it is. These people, they receive legal representation during the trial. To me, person is in the legal process at the time he is arrested. When he's being questioned, interviewed, he should have the legal representation. We have very, I can say unprofessional, that is the demeaning. I can say people who are not serious when it comes to legal representation. So we say these people are sentenced to death, they should receive court briefs. It means court is supposed to assign someone to present these people, because most of these people, another socio-economic issue, this offense of socio-economic cadre, the people cannot afford to get legal representation. So it's upon the court to assign someone. Who are they assigned?
10th of October, World Day Against Death Penalty. Maybe shed some light, giving it a little bit of background to it. Why do we even commemorate it?
Yeah, thank you. The reason we commemorate the World Day Against the Death Penalty is to raise awareness, public awareness, in regard to the evil effects of the capital punishment all over the world. So we intend to bring together all abolitionists, CSOs, the media, and all like-minded organizations to share experience, share challenges, share best practices on how others have managed to abolish the death penalty. So its main objective is to ensure that we come out with strategies on how we can abolish the mandatory imposition of the death penalty all over the world.
And I'm Advocate Fulgence, maybe to come back to you, in your earlier explanation, you did mention about the UN that was formed, but I stand to be corrected, but death penalty was even back then during the colonial era, etc. And Tanzania is a member of the United Nations. Have you ever considered, as 27th years of existence, but to collaborate with organizations such as UN, mandating it to Tanzania and other nationals to actually wind it off completely?
Yeah, before I answer your question about the UN role on the abolition of death penalty, I should answer your first question first, because it was tricky in the interesting question that someone who killed deliberately, what should be done to him?
And has confessed.
And he has confessed.
Yes, and all, you know.
All evidence is there.
Yes.
Yeah, death penalty does not fit in any. And whenever there is a UN General Assembly, they always vote on moratorium on death penalty to send the message. And with the enactment of the second option protocol to ICCPR, International Covenant of Civil and Political Rights, it is calling for the member state to abolish death penalty. In Tanzania, we're not part of the second option. So to say that what is the global move of the UN position is very clear. They are against death penalty. And you know that death penalty is a remnant of the colonial system. It was introduced by our colonial masters back then. And most of them, they've abolished the death penalty. And you'll see, even in some intervention where UN has been involved, like you take example of Rwanda and Burundi, when they are addressing the issue of the genocide, and they wanted to try those people within their countries, one of the conditions they are given, for you to establish a gacaca, make sure you don't impose death penalty, because they know how it can be politicized, how it can be imposed to the people. So you see how UN has been very influential to make sure that death penalty is abolished. And where the country is not ready to abolish, they are looking how to mitigate the number of offenses punishable by death, or at least to have moratorium on the execution, like the way Tanzania we have de facto moratorium, but not in law. In some other countries, they've gone further to sign that we are not going to execute. And you'll see even the notes they issue to the public whenever the country abolished death penalty, they celebrate to show that this country has abolished death penalty for this particular year. I think this is, currently there is a country in West Africa which has abolished death penalty. Yeah. So it has been the global move and in support of UN to make sure that this sentence is done in all over the world.
And I'm coming down to Tanzania now and contemplating from your response again, Advocate. We've not had the execution of the death sentence in Tanzania since 1994.
Yes.
Which is a plus, but again, it still remains in the law. And I can only understand not having been executed does not mean that we do not have people on the death row in Tanzania.
Yeah.
Tell us slightly more about that.
Okay.
So this people, I do not have the numbers, but probably because you're working directly in this area, you can tell us how many people we have in Tanzania, how many sentences. Maybe Full just could also add if we had death sentences. But again, what are their stories? These are the people that you talk to on probably
as
regular
for
basis.
Yeah, thank you. As for the data now, that's the tricky part because it's very hard nowadays to get statistics on people from the death row. I mean, it's been very tricky.
Okay.
As you are probably aware, we have got the Prisons Act of 1967. That makes it very hard to get data or statistics from the prisons. And like in other countries like Kenya and Uganda, where we have an open door policy, where even members of the press can actually go to interview. Would wish for that, but that's another day's story. We have been in touch. We actually conducted an interview, a second interview, with Tete Kafunja. He's 66 now. He's a man who used to be an ordinary trader at Manzese. He had a joint called Mary Pub. And on this particular day, the police came and said, you know what, do you know a person called so-and-so? He said, yes, I do. He said, well, the guy has been arrested. He needs you to go and bail him out. So Tete left there peacefully to go and bail him out. But when he got there, he was told that he had been involved into a murder, that his so-called acquaintance had informed the police that Tete had actually left with a murder weapon. So he was arrested. And eventually, the case went to court. He went confidently knowing that I did not kill anybody because, according to Tete, he never knew the name of the person, let alone his face. He had never seen the Geoffrey Shambalai, the guy who was allegedly accused of killing. So he said, I never knew his name, I never knew his face. So I had I felt it was a mere fiction. But guess what? He went to court and he was accused of murder and he was sentenced to death. So simple as that, plain. And he went to prison. He was on death row for 18 years. In between, he tried to fight for an appeal, and the appeal was not moving. Although within that same year, he was accused, like in August 1990. In December 1990, 3 people were arrested, and they confessed to have killed the guy Geoffrey Shambalai. So it gave him the strength to fight for an appeal. But things were not moving. The process was a bit cumbersome. So Tete and his friends decided to go on hunger strike for 7 days, trying to press for an appeal. Eventually, on the 7th day, they couldn't move, they couldn't wake up, they were too weak. The prison wardens decided to take them to the hospital where they got some drips. And then they were told to eat. They said, we will never eat, because to us it's better to die from hunger rather than pay for a crime that we do not commit. Rather than face the hangman, we would rather die from hunger. Eventually, papers were brought for them to sign, and they had to be brought back to Dar es Salaam for the appeal. And it was in October, before that it was August now, 2008, where they went to court. He went again to court only to find out his advocate had passed away. So there was no advocate there. Eventually, he found somebody else. You know, with murder cases, you are given a status on somebody to assist you. So he got somebody else to help him. And in October 10, 2008, he was acquitted. He was a free man. But he's lucky because while in prison in 1990, somewhere, 2 people were executed while he was there. And he said what came to his mind was that I'm next. And what pained him more was knowing that he was going to die for a crime that he did not commit. So those are some of the testimonies from people who found themselves in a peculiar situation that they did not. His only mistake was trying to be kind to go and bail out his friend, only to be implicated in a murder of a person he did not know his name, let alone his face. So those are some of the stories on why we believe that there are a lot of Tetes in prisons. Because not everyone who is in prison is a criminal. Some of them are there simply because they failed to pay for a good defense lawyer to defend them in court. So if you keep convicting them to die, you will kill a lot of innocent people.
But again, Fulgence, maybe to come back to you from what Madam Rose has just said, legally, just to understand, I'm sure my viewers watching are probably as stuck as I am in the thoughts that, you know, when someone has taken such a case to police and then you are acquitted of something after so many years, do you go back to claim your rights, what you lost, and all that, or do you just said, thank you God, I'm out, and you know, let's go back into harmony? Is there any harmony after that? At least with yourself.
That's why I'm saying that when it comes to the criminal justice system in Tanzania, is a package of many issues which are not addressed. One of the barbaric countries when it comes to the death penalty, America can be one of them. Some of the states will be execute. But for the acquittal and the people who have been exonerated from the offense of murder, which is the offense punishable by death here, they are compensated automatically. There is a fund to compensate those people. But you'll find in Tanzania, talk of Tete Kavunja, because I know him, is the person who spent 18 years in death row for the offense which he didn't commit. And when he came out of the jail, I think he was given only bus fare.
1,000 shillings.
1,000. To go to his place where he used to rent, just to find out the family is not there. And to date, he has been traced his family to date. He has never located the family. Because he said at the time he was serving sentence, there was outbreak of cholera. And no one was allowed to go to visit the prison. And that's what the end of him seeing the family. He never saw this family. So there is no any compensation in place. Even if it was found that there was a error on record that this person didn't commit the offense, but there is no that compensation structure in place. And talking about the number of the people on the death row, previously we used to have the number, it was ranging between 400 and 300. But with the President, the late Magufuli commutation, technically we believe the number could be very low, because technically he cleared all the death row, but still there are a number of the people. But to us, to get those information, it is very tricky, and the area which you cannot get some of those data. But in some other countries, is the area where those data are easily available to the community. That's why I'm saying the old principles of the criminal punishment, they're not there. Because if you want to deter the people, why don't you show who and who behind the bars for the offense or is waiting for execution? Because that will deter people. You are punishing people and you are expecting people to be deterred from committing an offense while no one knows where are these people and what are they doing, whether to be executed or not. So that's the only problem we are facing. That's why I'm saying there is a lot of issues to be addressed around this, even the data has to be available. But even having this de facto moratorium in place since 1994, no execution, at least we should go further to sign declaration that we won't execute people. But we should go further to look at the mandatoriness of the sentence. Not everyone is committed or an offense of murder should be sentenced to death. You should give the court opportunity to sentence the person according to the evidence which is being presented, according to the mitigation. To me, it's like this. You've given very horrible example of this person who wiped the whole family, and he confessed it.
Yes.
You tried these people for 8 years, and then you convict him in the 10th year. Is it the same person who was apprehended on the first day?
Is it the same crime that is
It's the same crime, but the person, person
Yes.
you are going to punish is not the same person anymore.
Right.
At the time he spent in prison, you'll find he's totally different person.
But again, if you're asking me that question, Advocate Fulgence, in the lines of letting go of this person, what about the souls that have perished because of his deed 8 years, 10 years back? You know, by releasing him, have you given justice to those people that he had murdered?
That's another misconception you are trying to
Please, let's highlight it.
Because we are saying that there is
Yes.
alternative sentences. It's not releasing the person. This person is convicted. There is another punishment which can be imposed to this person. Tanzania life sentence is a life, a real meaning. That will spend the rest of your life behind bars.
We don't campaign for people who commit capital offenses to be released.
I totally agree,
Yeah,
and
we
I'm
want
totally
them
with you
to-
here.
yeah,
But
yeah.
again, sympathizing, which we all are.
Yeah.
But again, everything is for a reason. You know, why was this lengthened? Was because before the court passes the sentence, they wanted to be passing that sentence with all evidence beyond reasonable doubt that this person is not insane, this person was not under influence, etc., etc. So it takes longer. Okay, so I'm looking onto the victims. These people had probably the parents lost their daughter who was murdered by the husband, and the poor grandchildren that they are now fighting for justice through this person's deed. Even if 10 years down the line, but just to understand, advocate. But Madam Rose, you're burning.
Yeah,
Sure.
I'm burning indeed. With me, again, NI for NI is not working very well. I understand your grievances. Somebody has lost their loved ones. It's a pity, it's sad because I'm human. There's the sense of compassion and empathy. Mm-hmm. But now if we are to kill the murderer, what do we do to the rapist? With murders, we have a hangman. With the rapist, if we are to commit an eye for an eye, do we hire a national rapist to rape everybody who does the raping in the country? Do we do so?
No, we don't do so.
Yeah, that is impossible. That's why we say, because the punishment is irreversible, those convicted of murder should be sentenced to life imprisonment so that they can go there, work, and repent. We don't want them to be released to simply go back before they repent, before they work, unless they were, of course, too sick to even remain in prison. But to us, we don't say, well, a person who commits murder should be left to walk scot-free. No, no, no. That's not what we intend. Mm-hmm. We are just against the principle of an eye for an eye, because we believe that it's not ideal. That a person who is convicted of capital offenses should be sentenced to life in prison rather than murder, because there are a lot of unspoken things that go on from the time a person is arrested. This year's theme says it all, that the death penalty, a road paved with torture. We all understand that there are a lot of unspoken things during the interrogation. We all should admit that interrogation is not romanticism. There's no romantic language during interrogation. We all have to admit that. I'm sure we are not police persons, we are not army men, we are not army women and all that. But I'm sure you are aware that when they interrogate people, they would not say, Makani, did you kill that guy, darling? Did you please tell us? I'm sure there are a lot of unspoken things that will happen. So there are chances some of the people on earth who confess to killing somebody, their confession may not come so naturally. There may be a force, an unknown force that me and you will never know during the confession and interrogation, especially during the interrogation.
Fulgence, let's get back to the legal connotation. I'm reading in between the lines, but also trying to understand. You've said it. I must confess that you've said it. But just to understand, some of these laws are really imposed. You've spoken, Madam Rose, you spoke about rape, for instance. Yeah. And a rape sentence in Tanzania is 30 years behind bars, right? You've spoken about it, and I want to understand, I'm sure my viewers will align with me, when someone is murdered, or when the government decides to allow or agree to a death sentence in situations that are related to that sentence, is because they don't want to leave an open window where someone can say, I will kill this person and end up being in life imprisonment sentence. I think there's that phobia that if I kill, I will also be killed, that lingers around. So if and I pray that this is very successful, if we successfully abolish in Tanzania death sentence, are we not giving some sort of a leeway to people thinking that if I kill him or I kill her, the most that can happen to me is life imprisonment?
Yeah, To me, killing the person is not a punishment. It's a benefit which every one of us is waiting for. Eventually, every one of us will die. And that's why you find most of the people who commit heinous crime, one of the options they have, they want to kill themselves because they simplify everything. So death has never been a punishment. It's a relief to the person. It's a relief. But because for us who remain in the world, we believe that death is a punishment, but for the person who meet the death, that's why we say rest in peace. You have the peace in you, so you are resting. And we don't know where do people go when they die. And we always cherish that people, they go somewhere beautiful when you die because you did something good. But we've never talked anything about cow and goats, where do they go? Because they have sorrow. But to me, death penalty, it is not a punishment. It's a relief to that person. That's why we believe even these people, when they face difficult circumstances, they think killing himself or dying. And in Tanzania, we have a very interesting scenario. We conducted a study in 2008. In Uganda, through Susan Kigula case, and in Malawi, through Francis Caventine, in Kenya, Muriatetu case. They are the people who were on death row, who went to court to petition for the death penalty, mandatory death penalty. When it came to Tanzania, of course it was successfully in those countries. When it came to Tanzania, no one from death row from our study in 2008 was ready to go to petition for alternative sentence. Why? All of them, they said we want to die. Why are not to be executed? So if you get perspective from the people from death row, they are looking for it sometimes. Because they say that I stay in prison forever and I don't know what's my fate. I know what has happened to my family sometimes because I get information. And I know I could do something to my family just to help them if they're in trouble. But since I'm held here, I can't do anything. So to them, death, it was the only option available for them. So that's why they never went to court to petition for abolition of mandatory death penalty, because they are saying, alternative, what will it be? That's why I'm telling you, life imprisonment is the heinous punishment than the death to the person, convicted person himself.
Yeah.
Because you simplify everything. Killing the person is the matter of second. Everything is gone. But what we are worried about is the death row phenomenon. And death row phenomenon doesn't affect the person who is sentenced only. Have you ever thought about the death of the prison warders? You convict this person today, and you remain in prison for the next 10 years to be executed. Do you think these prison warders, they don't develop the kind of the affection, friendship with those people convicted? If you can develop that kind of relationship with your pet, how comes about the person you are keeping in your prison like that? In one of the advocacy meetings I attended, there are some prison warders from Uganda. They say one of the difficult tasks they've ever encountered, they are the ones who are punished. We are being punished to kill people. Those who are killing, they are saying they are being punished because they are the ones who feel pain. You stay with this person for 4, 10, 5 years, and then next morning you are told you go and execute this person. You develop the affection with that person because you've lived together and you know him by name. You give him food. He's saying, my clothes are torn. Today I feel cold. I need a blanket and everything. And the next morning you ask him, go and kill this person. To them, they are the one who will be punished. So that's why I'm saying the concept of death row phenomena is so broad in such a way, there are a lot of unspoken things. You are punishing even those who didn't go. If we are asked today, myself, I can see the blood of the person. But today I'm hired now going to kill this person. What should I do? Who is going to suffer?
Yeah, actually.
And that's why they're saying, even the hangmen, they are the drunken people.
Yeah.
They develop that behavior not because they loved it, because of the kind of the work they were doing. Yeah. And in Uganda, for example, mandatory death penalty is abolished. And it is clear, given that death row phenomena, if someone is sentenced to death and not executed within 2 years, that's automatically committed to life sentence. Because they were punished even in prison warders. because they are punishing people who didn't commit offense.
Maybe, thank you, Advocate Fulgence. Madam Rose, what are some of the, we are commemorating the World's Day Against Death Penalty, and many countries, I do not know how many, again, I do not have the numbers, but you have the numbers. How many countries have successfully been able to abolish death sentence in the world? And what were some of the key lessons that probably Tanzania could borrow towards this continuous fight?
Okay, in East Africa, I will mention the ones in East Africa. Masawi will probably have the most latest data in this conflict. In East Africa, I'm aware Rwanda and Burundi. That's the thing. Those are the best practices that have been trying to catch. And we're also Malawi. They are they're heading almost towards there.
Abolition.
Towards abolition. Kenya and Uganda are faring very well, although now mandatory. Mandatory meaning where you have a provision in the law. Like in Tanzania, we have a provision in law, section 197 of the Penal Code. It states specifically that anybody charged of murder will be sentenced to death. Now, in some of the penal codes, in their laws, you can paraphrase rather, that penal provision to read, let's say, life.
May.
Yeah, but when it's the way it is in Tanzania, it's a bit tricky for judges. Of course, we have had some judges in Tanzania who have issued dissenting opinions in regard to death penalty, despite the law being there, but they say, you know what, I'm not going to hang anybody. We had the late Judge Mausanya who said, no, the death penalty is degrading, inhuman, and it violates the fundamental principles of human rights. We had Angela, the judge, retired justice from the Court of Appeal, Justice Angela Kileo, who also said, I'm not pro-death penalty. So she refused to sentence somebody to death penalty. There are those, but now the law has it ties their hands, judges' hands. So as for the global data, Masawi, do we have the most current perhaps?
I don't have
to know how many, it has been tricky because it's like back and forth. At one moment you say these are the data, and then eventually...
But how are we faring as a country, Tanzania? Are we literally on the walk out of death?
We have 110.
Sentence?
We have 110 globally, country which has abolished death penalty.
Okay.
And we have 27 countries which have abolished death penalty in practice. Like Tanzania, technically we've abolished it in practice because you are not executing. We have 55 countries in the world which are called retentionists. They retain death penalty. And we have 7 states which have abolished death penalty for common law crimes. You know, you go to Kenya, unlike Tanzania, they have a number of the offenses punishable by death. One of them being armed robbery.
Imagine.
You see? That's why you see. So globally, we have almost 137 countries which do not impose death penalty. Okay. 110, they've abolished it in practice and in the books, and 27 by practice. They don't practice it.
Including Tanzania.
Including Tanzania.
Okay, but we still have it in books.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the retentionists, which are very popular, is China, Iran, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and Syria. Those are the countries which are very popular. And unfortunately, the sub-Saharan country, it is Botswana only. Botswana, there are very few. They are like 2 million in number in terms of population, but they execute each other. And they are very progressive. They communicate. Today we'll be executing Mr. So-and-so at this time. Yeah. And after execution, they'll issue another statement. Yeah. The execution went successfully.
Imagine.
Yeah, he died in peace. So those are the kind of the things you get. Do you think about the family of the people? And do you think about those people behind those issues, those statements, those who are going to
We are almost coming towards the end of the Monday agenda. I would really wish to continue to understand. And I'm sure, we do not have so many avenues in Tanzania to understand these issues. That's why, I keep asking, keep wanting to know more. But maybe for the next 2 minutes before we close the program, to understand the commemorations in Tanzania on the 10th of October. What are the plans?
Okay. We have several plans, like the Tanzania Media for Community Development term code has been conducting a media campaign from the 1st of October. So we are issuing like stickers and posters online, a social media campaign showing on why, we are giving the 10 reasons on why the death penalty should be abolished. But we conducted an interview with Tete Kafunja, the man who spent 18 years on death row, and we have got a Q&A, as well as a feature story that we are going to publish on October 10th. We also intend to convene the press, several journalists. Before the press conference, we are going to make like a presentation also to create the awareness, to sensitize them on the issues on why the death penalty is bad, and probably share a documentary also before we issue press release. But I understand our colleagues also are planning to have something. Apart from this, we also intend to have other radio and television programs.
Okay, so
also.
raising awareness through media.
Yeah, it's a media campaign.
Okay.
Literally, yeah.
Advocates Fulgence, again, this is your 1 minute of fame. If you had that phone call to make to end or to abolish death sentence in Tanzania, who would you make that call to? And that person is watching the Monday agenda now.
President of the United Republic of Tanzania is a very powerful person. Looking at our legal system, and the power of the president is the one with all the mandate. And if you look at the criminal system or criminal justice system in Tanzania, Zanzibar, they are faring very well to compare with Tanzania mainland. Even when it's come to bail in all offenses. In Zanzibar, even the offense of murder can be bailed out. But for Tanzania mainland, it's not the same. So to me, presidency coming from the most favorable environment when it comes to criminal justice, to me, is the person I can make appeal to. Sometimes you can get some confusing ideas and views from the people because they don't have that education. They don't have those information. Talking about 137 countries in the world have abolished death penalty. These people are not wrong. Only 55 they are retaining, and among the 55, only like 4 or 5 countries which are executing people. So the death penalty by itself is controversial. Even those who are retaining, they are not doing it. Why? So there is a message inside it. So there is something, why are these people that are not in favor of death penalty? So that's why I started it by saying the human life is something, and no one should take that life away. And the criminal trial is not free from error. And if you execute someone, you cannot correct that message. And there is a lot of evidence available globally where people were sentenced for the offense which they didn't commit. And in the country where we are not developed to the extent of our investigation machinery, it's so good in terms of keeping records, DNA, scientific evidence, and so forth, it's very easy to execute anyone or to convict someone for the offense he did commit. So it is normal. I have a number of the criminal cases I can give like example. It's not the agenda for today, but if I give those examples, it's not a murder case. But the people who were accused for the offense, which they don't have a clue of, and some of them were convicted. And that's the example I always give. Vivid example that this person was charged of this offense. And the particulars of the offense were A, B, C. And when I was involved as a lawyer, these were my findings. Contrary. So it is possible for the person who never committed offense to be convicted for offense he never committed. And sometimes we don't revisit these cases. In America, which is a very advanced country, you have seen some people who were sentenced to death in 1970s being released on the error on conviction. So it is possible. If this person was convicted, was sentenced to death and he executed, what could have happened? A
few remarks. I say thank you so much for watching the Monday Agenda. Thank you for coming to the program. I'm your host, Austin Makani. Until next time, stay tuned.
Watch Capital Television on Zouk Decoder, channel number 067, Digitech Decoder, channel number 1103. Capital Television, your channel of choice.